Hi, my name is Paula and today we're gonna be knitting the Girlypop sweater together. Hey everyone, today I'm excited to show you the Girlypop sweater. This video will serve as a knit along, and in order to follow along you will need the pattern itself. I've included the link in the description so you can grab it and knit with me. This pattern is knitted both flat and in the round. The bottom part is done in the round, front and back pieces are done flat, and then the sleeves are picked up and knitted in the round as well. The whole piece is seamless and I will show you the techniques for it in this video. So let's talk materials. You'll need a 7 and 6mm circular needles, a tapestry needle to weave in your ends, a stitch marker to mark the beginning of your rounds, and of course yarn. This pattern is written for 10 ply aran worsted yarn, and how much yarn you need will depend on the size that you want to make. The pattern includes 3 sizes, and you can see also how much yarn you need for the size that you decide to make. Just for reference, this one is a size 2. I usually make the smaller sizes for myself, but I love the oversized fit of size 2 on me, so yeah. And before we dive in, let's talk a little bit about stranded knitting or color work. This whole piece is done with stranded knitting, and what it means is that you will be using 2 or more colors in the same row or the same round to create this color pattern. The yarn that you are not using while you are knitting with one color, it will travel in the back of your work, and that's called a float. So throughout this video, I will walk you through all the techniques that you need to know for the Girlypop sweater, and you will also find a list of them in the description so you can jump straight to any section or any technique whenever you need to. And about the pattern itself, it includes a color chart. That way you can follow along the rows to do the color work and also the repetitions that you need to do for this pattern. When you look at the color work chart, each square will be 1 stitch and each of the rows will be 1 knitting row. When you're knitting in the round, all the stitches will be knit stitches. You will just go around in circles making knit stitches, and the way that you will read the pattern will be from left to right all the time. So whenever you reach your stitch marker, you will go back to the left and continue reading the next row. But when you're working flat in the front and in the back, the way that you will read the pattern first will be from left to right, and then the next row you will go up and read from right to left. So basically you will just like pick up where you left off and continue going knitting in the next row. So grab your needles and let's have some fun knitting the Girlypop sweater together. To start any project, you first need to get the yarn onto your needles. I usually do it with the long tail cast on technique, and I'm gonna show you now how to do that. But first you will need to leave enough of a tail to do the very many stitches that you need to cast on depending on the size that you select. For this one, I left 5 arms length in the beginning. Once you have enough of a tail left in the beginning, create a slip knot and place it on your needle. And now using your thumb and index finger, wrap your yarn like this to create new stitches one by one. You will need to create as many stitches as it's indicated for your size. Once you have all the stitches on your needles based on your size, you need to make sure that they are not twisted before we join them in the round. And what I like to do to avoid a hole when knitting and joining in the round is swapping the first and the last stitches from one needle to the other. With your right needle, slip the first stitch from the left needle onto the right, and then with your left needle, lift the last cast on stitch from the right needle and place it back on the left. Now the first and last stitches have traded places, and we will need to add a stitch marker between them to indicate the beginning of your round. Once you've joined them in the round, you will start knitting your first row. After knitting one row, we will start doing the 2 by 2 rib. This means that we will be knitting 2, purling 2, knitting 2, purling 2 until the end of the row. To knit, keep the yarn at the back of your work, insert your right needle into the front of the first stitch of your left needle, wrap the yarn around the tip of the right needle, pull the yarn through the loop, and then slip the old stitch off the left needle. We will do this twice. And now to purl, bring your yarn to the front of your work, insert your right needle into the front of the next stitch from the right side, wrap the yarn around the right needle, pull the yarn through the loop, and slip the stitch off the needle again. We will keep doing this sequence until the end of the row with knitting 2 and purling 2. Now we will start the color work of this pattern, so we will move into stranded knitting. That means that we will be working with 2 colors at the same time. I feel like stranded knitting is half about your yarn management and the other half is about your yarn tension. So first, about the yarn management. To keep your strands from twisting, always decide which yarn goes on top and which one goes underneath when they cross over and you need to change from one color to another. Once you've made that choice, and this is very important, you need to stick with that choice until the end of the row at least. So if your base color goes underneath, it always needs to go and cross over underneath the yarn that you carry on top. Just find a hole that feels comfortable for you, as long as you keep always that order consistent. And now the second half of stranded knitting will be the tension. When you knit with two colors, the yarn that you are not using will travel in the back of your work. Let me show you. When I'm not using the red color, it travels as a float in the back. The yarn that's traveling in the back, it's called the float. Think of the float as a bridge between two stitches, not a rubber band. So it should reach from where you finish using that color to where you need it again comfortably, but not hang too loose so it sags. As a quick tip, before you switch the colors on your right needle, spread the stitches out a little bit. That will show you how much that float needs to travel to the next stitch. So let's see how this works in practice. I usually hold my main color in the left hand and my contrast color in the right. That way they're always in the same place when I switch. But this isn't mandatory, just find a hole that feels comfortable for you as long as you keep the order consistent. Here's an example with a bigger float. Just make sure it reaches the next stitch while leaving a big enough float for the base color stitches to stretch comfortably. I also wanted to show you a tip for working stripes while in the round to avoid a jog. So you will start knitting a new row with a new color as usual, but when reaching your stitch marker again, you will slip the first stitch of the next round instead of knitting it. This will avoid a jog as you keep knitting. When you need to work your color pattern flat, means that you already reached this part here and you're opening for the armhole. You will just need to leave some stitches on hold. To leave stitches on hold, simply thread a needle with a piece of thread or yarn and just slide the current stitches. This way you can keep this part of the project on hold until you need to use it again. When the color pattern needs to be done flat, that means that we will be knitting in the right side and purling in the wrong side while we keep the color pattern. The chart that you will see in the pattern won't be affected by whether you need to do the front or the back. You will just need to, instead of reading it all the time from left to right, you will now start reading left, right, then right, left. So you will need to go like doing kind of like an S motion, reading the color pattern, but you need to do the floats either way. But this time the floats would be looking at you, like facing you. So it would be easier also to see how long the float needs to travel to the next stitch, because you're gonna be seeing the wrong side while you're purling all your stitches. So here's the back of our work, and to start working a purl row while changing colors, we need to make sure that both our yarns are in the front of our needles. We will be keeping the color pattern as indicated in the chart, and we also need to keep the yarn order as we've done before. As you can see here, I'm having my pink yarn traveling on top, while the yellow yarn will always travel at the bottom. If one of your floats gets too tight for the space that they need to travel, simply pull it a little bit to make sure that it sits comfortably in the back before keeping on knitting. Once you reach the specific size measurement for the size that you are making, you will need to cast off here for the neckline. We will be casting off or taking stitches off our needles for this opening for the neckline, and then we will finish the right shoulder separately from the left shoulder until it joins also the back. So you will need to knit until where the opening is supposed to begin. Knit however many stitches are determined for your size, and begin by knitting the first 2 stitches as you normally would. Then use your left needle to lift the first stitch over the second stitch and off the right needle. Knit another stitch, then use the left needle to lift the previous stitch over the newly knitted stitch and off the right needle again. You will need to do this for however many stitches you need to cast off for the specific size, and at the end there will be 1 stitch left in your right needle after the last cast off stitch. This single stitch counts as the first one at the side of the cast off. So we will now keep knitting the rest of the stitches on our needles following our color pattern, and that 1 stitch counts as 1. So let's say that you need to leave 36 in the other side of the cast off. That 1 stitch that is already on your right needle counts as number 1, so you need to knit 35 more. Once we have everything casted off, we need to shape the neckline, and for that we need to do knitting 2 together and slip knit passover. To knit 2 stitches together, insert your right needle into 2 stitches at once and knit them together as if they were one single stitch. Then drop them off your left needle and continue knitting. Then to do a slip knit passover, you will slip 1 stitch as if you were going to purl it, then knit the next stitch, and using your left hand needle, pass the slipped stitch over the knitted stitch. For this wavy part of the pattern, I added these stitches to decorate it after finishing the knitting. This step is completely optional, but here's how you can do it. Thread a tapestry needle with your chosen yarn and trace the stitch that you want to highlight from the back of your work. Insert the thread at the bottom of the V, then underneath the V shape on top, and back to the bottom of the V. So after casting off and doing the shaping of the neckline, you're gonna do a similar thing for the back. It's always explaining the pattern and how long it should reach before you do the cast off in the back. But basically you're gonna be working each shoulder separately. So front right, front left, back right, and back left separately. And once you've completed each shoulder separately and knitted up to the length indicated in the pattern for your size, you're gonna be joining the shoulders together. To join the shoulders, we're gonna be using the 3 needle bind off technique. So you need your second pair of needles and you need to pick up the stitches on the shoulder that you left on hold. Now to start this technique, you need to turn your sweater inside out. This part that you see will be inwards and the floats will be outwards. Your 2 shoulder pieces will need to be lined up evenly in the 2 separate sets of needles, and they should have the same number of stitches to now join them together. You will need to hold those 2 needles in parallel in your left hand, and then with the 3rd needle in your right hand, insert it knitwise through the first stitch on the front needle and then the first stitch on the back needle. Knit them together as one. Work the next pair of stitches in the same way, so you have 2 stitches now on your right needle. Then lift the first stitch over the second and off the needle. Continue like this across the row, always knitting 1 stitch from each needle together and then binding off as you go. When you reach the end, just simply cut your yarn and pull it through the last loop. You will repeat the same technique for the second shoulder, and as you can see, they will join seamlessly 1 stitch with the other. After joining my shoulders, I usually like to do the neckline before the sleeves, so they don't get tangled along the way. So we're gonna be picking up the stitches for the neckline. You will be changing your needles here, and starting in the middle of the back, insert your needle at the edge of your work from the outside inwards and wrap your yarn around it. Pull the yarn through, and that will make your first stitch. Continue picking up stitches clockwise evenly around the neck opening until you have the ones indicated for your size in the pattern. You should reach the first one you picked up again, so place a stitch marker onto your needles to indicate the beginning of your round and start working again your 2x2 rib, so knitting 2, purling 2, until the neckline measures what's indicated in the pattern for your size. Once your neckline reaches the specific length indicated in the pattern, we're gonna do a folded neckline and cast it off as we go. You will need to fold your neckline inwards, and we're gonna secure it with the pickup stitches. You will need to line the live stitches on your needles with the corresponding edge stitches or the pickup stitches from that pickup row that we did in the beginning. Then we're gonna do a simple bind off, the same that we did before. So we're gonna knit 1 live stitch together with one of the picked up stitches at the same time. And we will cast off by lifting the first stitch over the second and off the needle. You're gonna do this all around your neckline until you reach the beginning again. So once we have the neckline ready, we're gonna start picking up the stitches for the sleeves. The method is the same as we did for the neck, so we will just insert the needle, wrap the yarn around it and pull through, and we're gonna do it evenly across the opening that we have for the armhole. You will need to pick up however many stitches are indicated for your size, and then we will start doing the color work as indicated in the chart in the pattern. So as we've done before, we will insert the needle and wrap the yarn around it to pick up stitches around the sleeve opening. We will be working clockwise again from the bottom of the armhole, spacing the stitches evenly. Once you return to the starting point, place a stitch marker to begin knitting the sleeve in the round. While doing the color work in the sleeves, we will also be decreasing stitches as instructed in the pattern to shape it. This will be done as before by doing the slip knit passover and the knit two together techniques. Once you reach the length indicated for your size, you will need to change the needles again to work the 2x2 rib in the cuffs. So this is the same that we've done for the neckline and also for the beginning of the sweater. And you will be knitting 2 and purling 2 until it reaches the length. You will then knit 1 row and then cast off. And the cast off, it would be the same as we've been doing throughout the sweater. And you will just need to repeat the same for the second sleeve and your sweater will be done. And that's the Girlypop sweater. If you have any questions, please leave a comment or reach out to me directly. Thank you so much for supporting me and my patterns. It really means a lot. I hope you love this sweater as much as I do because I truly love this one. And I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Happy knitting and see you in the next video.